Retro Critic here, and today we're going to be reviewing and talking about Perfect Dark. And Perfect Dark is one of Rareware's most creative games out there, and it's one of Rareware's more adult games in the console and the Nintendo 64 era, so, there's that. So this game is one of Rareware's first-person shooter games, and it's really their second first-person shooter games on the console. And it's one of my favorite of a first-person shooter game of Rareware. It's one of my favorite first-person shooter games from Rareware. And it's one of my favorite first-person shooter game. It's one of my favorite Rareware games of a first-person shooter type game. So that's kind of. So guys, let's see if this game still holds up, and let's find out and see for ourselves. So guys, let's take a look at Perfect Dark.
So Perfect Dark was a game that came out in the year 2000, and that it was a game that was published by Nintendo, and it was developed by Rareware. Perfect Dark is a first-person shooter game / adventure game, and it is also a adventure game where you do explore in the game, and you find clues to go to each world, and you explore, and it's a spy, and you spy in the game, and it's a spy game, and it's an interesting strategy game, and it's an interesting spy game. You do a lot of missions in the game. And you do a lot of fun missions in the game. So this game is kind of a spiritual successor to GoldenEye 007. And GoldenEye 007 was one of Rareware's first well-known first-person shooter game. And it was their first game where they did a first-person shooter game. So GoldenEye 007 was a big popular game, was a big popular success of a game at the time, and Rare decided that they wanted to make their own original shooting game, and they wanted a shooting game to be creative and more unique, and they wanted to make a more creative shooting game, and that game is Perfect Dark. And Perfect Dark incorporates many similar functions to GoldenEye 007, and the most evident and obvious thing here is the control scheme of the game. And it has a similar example here. And the most evident and most obvious example here is the control scheme. And also another similar example here is, in general, the gameplay too. Now, what sets Perfect Dark apart from GoldenEye 007? And what makes Perfect Dark different from GoldenEye 007? And what makes it stand out on its own? And what makes it stand out on its own was the texturing. What makes it stand out on its own was the texturing ever used in every level design, and the incorporation of a secondary weapons, in the incorporation of secondary functions for every weapon in the game. And it has new modes, and it has the utilization of voice acting, and in essence, Perfect Dark greatly improves upon the high standards set by GoldenEye 007. And in general, Perfect Dark greatly improves upon the high standards set by GoldenEye 007, and the game still receives critical acclaim to this day. So, and GoldenEye makes it stand out on its own. And Perfect Dark is the game that stands out on its own. Perfect Dark is the game that greatly improves upon itself. So even though that GoldenEye 007 was their first shooter game, and one of their first shooter games, and as one of their first shooter games, and as a shooter game, it aged kind of bad. It doesn't age that well. It's not that bad, but it's just okay. And even though that is a James Bond game, and that, by the way, it was a popular game for the time, and it was a success at the time, and I feel like that game doesn't hold up very well. And it's that very great. And it was very great at the time. And it's not that very great. And the graphics at the time feel dated. And even though the gameplay too, I feel about like how dated the graphics feel. And even the marketing of the game still feels kind of dated either way. And now GoldenEye 007 as a James Bond game doesn't even hold up very well. And it's there for promotion of the movie. And it was only made for promotion of the movie. And the James Bond game was taking the success of the critically acclaimed box office success of James Bond movie, and that it was just a tie-in game. And here I feel like that Perfect Dark is highly original here, and is still very creative here. And I actually do think that the graphics of that game actually still look impressive here. And even though Perfect Dark's gameplay is actually pretty good here, I do feel like this game still holds up, and that this game still stands to the test of time. So Perfect Dark was Rareware's second first-person shooter game, and I do think that it is Rareware's best first-person shooter games. And overall, I think Perfect Dark is more iconic of a game, and it's one of their better games, and I think it is a really good game, and it's a really fun game, and it has one of their more memorable characters, and it's one of their best games out there, and I do think it's a really fun game, and it's a really good game, and I think it's a really more iconic game. I highly recommend it. Yeah. The game is one of Rareware's more mature games, and it's one of Rareware's more violent games on the system at the time. So the game is about where you follow a female lead called Jonah Dark, who is our main character, and she is a spy that is out to stop an evil organization called Databrine. And Jonah Dark is there to fight their evil plans for world domination, and stop their evil plans for world domination. And she also fights terrorists, and mostly fights terrorists in the game. And she also interacts with aliens in the game. And she only interacts with aliens to only help them out. Villains can help you out. But later they help you there in the game. And that's about it. And that's what you do in the game. And that's pretty much what the game is about. And that's what that game is overall. And that the game is overall a pretty fun shoot-'em-up game. It's a very cool, edgy, dark, violent spy thriller game with some sci-fi. So the story of Perfect Dark is about a secret agent called Jonah Dark. And she's assigned on a mission involving the extraction of a scientist from the high-security research area. And she has to find Dr. Carl. And later, Jonah is surprised to find out that Dr. Carl is an alien. And she has to escort him out and save him and get him out of there. And help him escape from the evil organization, Databrine. Later, the alien Dr. Carl helps you out. And she has to stop the evil organization, Databrine, in the game. And she has to save the world in the game. So overall, the story of the game is complicated and it's a little convoluted. I think you'll get used to it as you play the game. And later it does get simple when you play the game. There are some okay enemies in the game, and the enemies of the game are alright here. And the enemies are just normal henchmen humans, and they work for Databrine. And they're just average humans who are henchmen that work for Databrine. And these are the enemies of the game. And these enemies are the most common enemies of the game, and these enemies are the main enemies of the game, are the most common. These enemies are the most main enemies of the game, really. So yeah, I think they're okay and all right, and I think they're just really average enemies. I think they're just really okay. I think they're really okay enemies. I think they're just really average enemies. They're all right. There are enemies of the game called the Skeeters. And the Skeeters are an enemy race, and they're enemies of the game, and they're cool enemies to shoot at. And the Skeeters are aliens, and you have to shoot at the alien Skeeters, and that's really about it. I think they're okay enemies. So the main villains of the game is Cassandra, who's the head of the Databrine organization, and Agent Trent Easton, who's an ally of Databrine, and Agent Mr. Blonde, who is, an agent of Databrine, and one of the main villains of the game. And then there's the Skeeter King, who's the leader of the alien species of the Skeeters. You have to fight him too. And those are the main villains of the game. She later teams up with Elvis the Mayan, and he is another alien. Mayan is an alien species, by the way. And he's an alien that helps her out in the game, and later Elvis helps Joe fight off the main enemy of the game. Fight off the evil villain of the game. After she helps her out fight off the main enemy in the game and destroy the evil shrine in the game. So Jonah Dark has to fight the evil Databrine. And Databrine is the evil organization in the game she has to stop. And Jonah Dark has to stop Cassandra and the Skyder King from world domination. They both work together in a conspiracy to rule the world. You have to stop them. Later, you hunt Trent Easton and you have a shootout with him, but he escapes. You also hunt and have a shoot with Mr. Blonde, but they both escape. But then later, Mr. Blonde betrays Trent Easton and kills him, and basically, I think kills him and eats him. And then it turns out that, I guess, Mr. Blonde is a Skeeter alien all of a sudden. And he turns to a Skeeter alien and then he warps into a Skeeter alien? It's weird. I don't know what the hell's going on, but it's very strange. They later have a shootout, and there's a shootout in a battlefield invasion, and then there's a shootout between the two alien species in a battleship invasion, all-time war with the battleships, and then later the battle's over, victory in the shootout, and then later I think there's a peace, then there's a truce or something like that, then there's a battle shrine, so then you work with Elvis the Mayan alien, and then you're in the alien base to blow up the shrine, blow up the alien base. And then you have to fight the battle shrine. And then there was a assault on ships, and with the help of the Mayans, and the Mayans were there to help in the battle, and they participated and they're involved in the shootout. And there was a shootout with the Mayans versus the Skeeters. You blow up the whole alien shrine, and then you escape and get out. And then you blow up the whole shrine, then you blow up the whole alien base. Later, the alien base gets destroyed, and then you blow up the shrine. So later, you and Elvis, they even blow up the Skeeters base, Skeeters alien shrine. And then you blow up the Skeeter's alien base, alien shrine in the game. And then Jonah Dark has a shootout with Mr. Blonde. And as he was escaping, you later have a shootout with him. And later Jonah Dark kills Mr. Blonde in a shootout. Later Cassandra gets betrayed, but then you rescue her. And then she tries to redeem herself. She later redeemed herself in the game. So Cassandra gets betrayed, but then but then you save her. Then you later save her in the game, and then you rescue her in the game. Later, Cassandra redeems herself, and you both work together to get out of there, and she says she was... Later, you actually team up with Cassandra to help her out, to escape and get out of there. Later, Cassandra explains that she was being used by the Skeeters. So later, Cassandra sacrifices herself and as a distraction from the Skeeters, so Joan of Arc can escape from the Skeeters. So Cassandra dies. So Cassandra gets killed by the Skeeter aliens. So Joan of Arc then finds her body and that she was killed by the Skeeter aliens. Eaten by the Skeeter aliens. Then there's a battle on their assault ship, and then you fight their assault ship, then you escape their alien ship. So then you kind of destroy the assault ship, and then you later escape from their ship. And you fight Mr. Blonde, but then you kill Mr. Blonde, but he turns out to be the Skeeter King. So then you fight the Skeeters, and you fight the Skeeter using his evil powers to rule the world, I guess. You have to shoot him, you have to stop him, destroy his wizard wand. So you fight them, and so then you fight the Skeeters, or one of the Skeeters, then you fight the Skeeters, then you fight the Skeeters and the Skeeter King, and there's a big shoot-'em-up boss battle. You have to shoot at them. You have to do your best to, stop him. There's a Skeeter shrine that spreads. And then later, the Skeeter shrine is destroyed and you defeat the Skeeter shrine. And the morale also comes up there again. And they also later defeat the morale. So then you fight the Skeeter King. And then you kill the Skeeter King. And then the Skeeter King gets defeated and destroyed. And she also kills off and destroys and gives the final blow to the Skeeter King. And the conspiracy is destroyed. So the whole thing collapses, the ruins fall down, then she tries to run away from it and escape. Elvis is looking for her, and then you see stone ruins on her, and then Elvis tries to help her out, then she tries to get out, and then Elvis hands her a gun to get out, and then she uses her gun to get out, which is kind of badass and cool. So later, Joan of Arc saved the world again, and she saved the world, and the job is done, and the mission is complete. And that was the ending of the game, and Joan of Arc is out there to kick some ass. And that was the ending of the game. And then they all, walk home, and so the game ends where they just walk home and walk to the sunset. And then you see the credits roll. And by the way, these are, the coolest looking credits I ever seen. I mean, I don't know, I just like how the credits are all sparkly, and just the credits are, shining like that. I don't know, it just looks kind of cool. And that was really the ending of the game, and this was a really good game. So that's my thoughts on that, and that was what I think about Perfect Dark. So what happened to the Perfect Dark franchise and what happened to it? So later, as you unfortunately all know, Rareware was sold to Microsoft, meaning that they are only allowed to produce and make their games on the Xbox, basically. So, and there was a sequel to Perfect Dark, but this is what happened to it. And this is what happened when they did make the sequel and they fucked it all up. So what happened to the Perfect Dark series? Well, let me tell you what happened to Perfect Dark and Rareware. And Rareware was no longer called Rareware, and they're now changed to Rare, and they're just called Rare. And I missed it how it was called Rareware, and it felt so catchy, and it felt more like an actual development company. And no, but here they're just called Rare, and honestly, being just called Rare is very lame and kind of pathetic. Really. So this is what happened to Perfect Dark in the sequel, and it's fucking horrendous. And it's sad it became like this, but here we go. So later Perfect Dark had a remastered remake on the Xbox 360. And even though it's a remastered remake on the Xbox 360, and it's just nothing special, and I feel it was just a cash grab. And yes, they were trying to upgrade the graphics for the Xbox, and I guarantee you, this game was only made to see what it would look like in the Xbox graphics. And for a cash grab too, again. And it was for a cheap cash grab, and this game was horrendous, and this is what happened to the Perfect Dark's franchise and series, and unfortunately it's sad, but this is what became of Perfect Dark. So later they did make a sequel on the Xbox 360, and it was called Perfect Dark Zero. And for a sequel, it was fucking terrible. And the people who made this game didn't seem like they respected and knew the source material. And for an Xbox 360 game, it looks worse. And in the game, from what I hear, is very laggy. And from what I've seen, the gameplay here is made horribly. And from what I hear, it's sad. And from what I've seen, it's fucking horrendous. And by the way, I don't know why in this game Joan of Arc has orange hair. She's a redhead now or something. But what's so weird and funny about this is that in the first game, Joan of Arc has brown hair, and Joan of Arc was a brute. But here, Joan of Arc has orange hair, and she is all of a sudden a redhead now. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And why the change? What are they doing to this character? And why are they changing this character so much? And it's almost like they are literally turning her into a different person now. And it's almost like they literally are changing her and turning her into a completely different human, a completely different person now. What the hell? It's almost like they're completely changing her. It's almost like they're completely fucking her up. So overall, it's sad that they changed Joan of Arc, and Joan of Arc is now a changed person now. It's now a completely different character now. And Joan of Arc is now a completely different person now, and that's what happened to Joan of Arc. So I do think it sucks how Microsoft just completely changed Joan of Arc, and it's sad how Joan of Arc is like this now, as Microsoft changed this awesome character. It's just terrible how Joan of Arc is like this now. So it sucks how Joan of Arc was once a cool character, and is now just a tool for Microsoft, and just for a cheap buck, and for a cheap cash-in of a game 2, and they literally ruined Joan of Dark. So overall, Joan of Dark was once a cool and badass character, and a badass, and she was once a cool character, and now Joan of Dark is now just a shell of her former self, and she is now just a wasted IP now. But there you have it, that was my thoughts on Perfect Dark, and that was what I think about Perfect Dark.
So guys, that was Perfect Dark. And does this game still hold up? And does this game still stand on its own? So I do think Perfect Dark is a creative and a unique first-person shooter game. So guys, I highly recommend this game. And you can add it to your video game collection, and it's a good collection for your Rareware games too. And Perfect Dark is a really good first-person shooter game on the N64 that is really great, that is really good, and it's fun to play. So guys, I give Perfect Dark a 6 out of 10. And I think a 6 out of 10 makes the most sense, because for starters, it's really not my favorite of the Rareware games, and nor do I think it's one of the worst Rareware games out there too, so. I do feel like that Perfect Dark isn't that bad, nor do I feel like it's that great. And I do feel like I'm right dab in the middle of this game. I do feel like I'm in the middle of how I feel about this game, Perfect Dark. So guys, that was my thoughts on Perfect Dark, and that's all I have to say about Perfect Dark. So guys, I'm Retro Critic, and I'm out. And I'll see you guys later, and I'll see you guys around. Peace out, and bye.